Today we're going to make a video showing you some of the technical things that have to be done in order to make patterns for different parts of the boat. What we're going to do today is to show you how to make the patterns to connect a convertible top and a camper top on a runabout or a bigger power boat. We're going to show you how to get the backstay on a sailboat to come through the top without taking it all apart. And we're going to show you how to put a screen on a walk-through, on a window that's got a U-shaped zipper in it. These are some of the things that people have asked for that they don't know how to do, and we're going to show you the easy ways to do them and get them done correctly. So what we're going to do on this section of this tape is to show you how you pattern the leading edge of the camper top so that it blends into the aft end of the convertible top or the bimini top, as it may apply. But when you're adding a camper top to either one of those, there's a certain way that you have to pattern the leading edge of the camper top so that it doesn't become too wide and it does fit the forward top. So with that said, I'm going to move back and let the girls take over on do this. I'm going to explain what they're doing as they're doing it. Okay, what they're going to do here is this is a review of what you've had on the original tapes. We have the dots on the outside of the framework, which are the patterning dots that we use on all of our patterning system. Now the two dots that are on the outside of the aft frame of the convertible or the bimini top have got to be transferred to the inside of that frame, and it's only on the aft frame where you're going to connect the camper top. The easy way to do that is that we've already established the location of the two dots on the outside of the frame. So we're going to take some of this blue masking tape and run it around the frame in between the dots so that we got a place to refer to put the dots on the inside. So Dawn, if you want to put that tape on so that it's in between the dots and go right around the frame. Now I'm talking, I want the one to go around to transfer the dots. The whole purpose here is to get these dots transferred to the inside of the frame. And rather than try to do it by measurements, we use the piece of tape because it's a more accurate way of getting around to the inside. So Dawn has got the tape on here. There's a pair of dots, one on each side of the tape on the outside, so she's going to go on the inside edge of this frame, the innermost edge, and put a dot at the top and at the bottom of the tape. And that establishes getting these dots to the inside of the frame. With that done, then she's going to put the tape on the inside of the frame all the way across to support the patterning tape. While she's doing that, the reason why we have to do this is this. The forward top is patterned on the outside of the frame from the windshield to the first frame, from the first frame to the second frame, or the third frame as it applies to the number of frames required to build the top. Those patterns are made on the outside of the framework. The same is true when you pattern the aft top, which is the so-called camper top. The patterns are made on the outside of the frame with this one exception. The pattern that comes from the mid-frame of the camper top to the aft frame of the convertible top will be patterned from the outside of the camper frame to the underside of the aft frame for the convertible top. Consequently, the patterning material that we use has to be on the outside of the camper frame, on the inside of the leading framework for the leading top. You'll notice that we've used the spreaders to support the framework, which is something we've added in the last couple of years. They make our frames a lot more rigid so that things are not moving around when we're trying to pattern. Consequently, sometimes these clamps will get in the way when you're making your pattern. So when they stick the pattern down to the outside of this camper top frame and they come to the inside of the forward frame, they're going to notch it to where it'll go around that, or just cut a little slit in the pattern material so it'll go around these frame spreaders. We're only going to pattern one side of this, only because all we're trying to get across to you right now is the method of coming up with the pattern. You got to come ahead. Good. Now what they're going to do, Dawn is going to stick it down to the camper top frame in the back, and Becky is going to bring it underneath the aft frame of the front top and stick it on the underside. And when you got all this weight hanging down there, you're probably going to have to put some clamps on it, cut some slits in it, and get rid of some of that excess weight so that it don't keep falling off, because you're expecting it to stick on the underside of the frame. As she comes out here sticking it on the underside, when she gets almost to the spreader bar, she's going to cut a slit so that it can go around the spreader bar. You don't have to be real critical about how far you cut that slit, because you're only looking at an area of maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches wide that will not have a mark on it. And you're all good enough to get from the one mark to the other mark without a mark in that location right there. Make sure that when you put these clamps on that you clip the material clear back to the frame, because if you don't go clear back and you bend it up around, you're going to pull a belly into it on the back side of the frame, and you don't want to do that. As you come into the radius on the frame, you'll find that you're going to have to cut more slits in order to get it to bend up around there, because material doesn't bend two ways at the same time. And you may have to use an extra clamp or two. Right here in this radius, she couldn't bend it both ways. She's got to cut the slits almost just 1 inch apart in order to get it to bend around that inside radius. All right, once she gets this clipped and clamped down, then Dawn is going to take her end loose on the forward frame of the camper top and readjust it until all these little humps and bellies on the back side of the front frame are gone. Now remember, I said we're only going to pattern one half of this. Normally, we would be patterning this whole front half of this top. But all this is being done is to show you the sequence of where to mark to get the leading edge of the camper top to fit the aft edge of the convertible top.
Talk to me because I can't see. Get from there.
Okay. Okay, now that we have this stuck on and clamped onto the frame, now is when we mark. The mark on the camper top frame will be done exactly as it would have been done if it were on the outside of the convertible or the camper. The one that is the difference is the one which is the leading edge of the camper top, which is this frame right here. And the way we're going to mark this is she's going to transfer the two dots to it that were transferred from the outside to the inside. She's putting them on so that when we match up our dots with our dot system of patterning, they'll work out with the side curtain. The difference being that when we mark this, we hold the pencil perpendicular. Hold it up there, Becky. We hold the pencil on the outside of the frame perpendicular to the material, right at the edge of the frame. And you run that Sharpie all the way across on the aft edge of this frame, keeping it perpendicular to the material that you're running it on. The reason that this is done in this sequence is this. When you put your front top on and you put the flap on it that has the zipper on it to accept the camper top, your camper top is going to zip on the under edge of that flap. Consequently, the radius on the underside of the flap is much different than it is on the outside. By doing it this way, you have a smaller radius on the leading edge of the camper top. Now the other difference is this, because we may not put this on the table and work it, because you've all been in the canvas business, you've all learned a dot system of patterning, so I think you can all understand what I'm going to try to tell you now. When you put this one piece that connects the convertible to the camper, when you put it on the table to work it, you're going to leave your 1/2-inch seam allowance on the aft end of this frame, and you're going to leave your dots and your line. When you cut out the leading edge of this panel, you're going to cut on the line. You don't deduct anything, you just cut on the line. You'll use the same pair of dots just like we've always done, but you'll cut this edge right on the line, and that makes that edge with a smaller radius than the radius that's on the aft end of your convertible top. That will make your zipper so that it will fit, because what most of you have run into, and we forgot to tell you the last time around, is that if you don't do that, by patterning this camper top on the top of the frame the way we used to do it, you had too much top for the amount of zipper that you had. So consequently, we've finally learned that if you put this on the underside, mark it so it's perpendicular to the frame, cut the line, you'll end up with the right radius on the leading edge of your camper top. I think if you review this a couple times, you'll find it'll work right every time. Your zippers will come out right, and the edge of the camper top will flow right into the edge of the convertible top. Hopefully we've answered your questions regarding how to get a camper top hooked to an existing bimini or convertible top. So having said that, I'm going to go to our next jig that we've got set up to teach you another thing. So if you'll all follow me up here, we have a jig set up to show you how to pattern a top around an existing backstay, such as on a sailboat. And we've had a lot of requests for this on how to get it into the middle of the top and get it right the first time. Due to the extreme weather we got here in Florida of being too hot to go outside and work, why we've set a lot of these things up on jigs here in the shop, but we will get the point across of what we need to do in order to get these patterns made correctly. So if I can get my two daughters to come over here, we'll show you how we pattern a top, and you'll notice that we have a miniature top set up here, and we have a backstay, which is a piece of rope going down through where it's got to go through the top. We want to show you how to do this with the pattern the first trip so that you don't have to run back and forth and you know you're right before you do it. So the girls are going to put our shrink wrap on the frame. And what they're doing is Dawn is setting the front edge and Becky is taking it up so that she can get a point where she can cut down alongside the backstay to cut a slit in the patterning material so that she can pull against dawn and get a nice shaped top here. Now don't everybody get all uptight about making that first cut for the backstay, because the nice part about this patterning medium is that if you make a mistake, the worst you have to do is get a new piece and start over, or you take some of our brown tape and stick it back together and correct your mistake. This is why we use it. And the other reason we use it is that the brown packaging tape will stick to it real good. So all Becky's done has got a cut made so that she can bring the patterning medium around the backstay and pull it from frame to frame. She's making whatever relief cuts are necessary to get the top so that when it's spread from frame to frame, it's nice and tight and looks the way it should. Now that it's secured to the frame, they're going to take and draw the lines where the stitch lines are going to be on the frame, which is representing the seam. They're going to put the center marks on the pattern that were on the frame. They're going to put the pairs of dots that are on the sides of the frame, which represent where the top is going to finish and where the curtains are going to come to. I can't see it from here, but I'm sure the camera is showing you that up here in the middle of this pattern, you got a pretty zigzag cut for that relief cut for this backstay to go through. Don't let that upset you, because what she's done is when she pulled it back together, she's got it all touching right here on the frame. And what she's going to do is draw the relief hole around the backstay. She's going to put the center mark from the frame onto the pattern. And in this particular case, when she gets on the table, she'll be able to take this pattern and tape it back together and draw a line from the center mark to the opening for the backstay, and that will be where it's cut open. Now, let me stop for just a second, and let's go to the other thing of where you got a split backstay, because many boats have got a split backstay. You have to do the same process. So what you're going to be doing there is having a panel coming down the middle between the two backstays, make a cut on each side to make the relief cut to get around the stay. Then instead of guessing at it, you'll have your circular cut here for your backstay to have the movement that it requires. You'll have the same thing on the other side. Then you'll go back to measuring, and you'll have your center mark on your pattern, and you'll measure from backstay to backstay so that you can go from a common straight center line to a given dimension from that center line to this backstay, and you'll measure on your pattern from the center to where the backstay is over here and put a mark, and then you'll make a straight cut from that mark into the backstay. You've accomplished the same thing using measurements as opposed to one cut. So this will get you so that you can do single backstays and split backstays. How are we doing, girls? Again, remember our pattern. You got sout, pout, customer's name, center marks, dots, lines representing the stitch line. Don't neglect any of those things. You have to have them all. It'll save your life when you're back at the shop trying to put it together and you've made a mistake and you've got to correct it at the shop as opposed to going back to the boat. Have I got it covered, girls? Okay, one of the things that we just got into a discussion on, and it's my fault, I should have remembered it, but I'm getting older and I got CRS. So anyway, in traveling around the country and teaching different people have different things that they do different ways for the particular part of the country that they're in. Many years ago, I used to put all my zippers from the back stay to the back frame. part of that was because I hated this one coming down over the side. By the same token, I don't have the answer to everything in the world, and many people like to have their zippers come from the side of the top into the backstay. And this will all be done, again, by using the center line that was established on the pattern. And we'd be drawing a straight line from center mark to center mark. We would know where this was cut out for the backstay in relation to that center line. So we would square off of the center line and make a cut right down across the side of the top so that you can have a zipper going from the side of the top to the center. And I'm not going to get into the discussion about which is the better way because either one works just as well. I don't particularly like it from the side, but I'm not the only one in the world. So this is the two ways that it can be done. But again, once you've established your center line and your opening for the backstay, all of the rest of this can be done by dimension. And when we get on the table and work that pattern, we'll show you how that all works.